What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down what just happened during the FOMC meeting that's very important for the markets, and also why tomorrow is going to be another very important day as we have Apple earnings. I'm going to break down how it may affect Tesla and the broader market going forward. I'm going to talk about something very big that Elon Musk said, what the news, data, and technicals are telling us about Tesla and the markets, and once again, what my price prediction is for Tesla going into tomorrow and beyond. But before I break anything down about Tesla stock, before I talk about what's going on with the market right now, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed up to 5 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 9 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Tesla was up 0.19% for the day, showing some relative strength as Tesla got a nice bounce in the morning, trying to push for that 165 resistance. I did predict that Tesla would make its way up to 163 and maybe 165 if we broke it, but then we could get a rejection after that, and then we'd react to what happens during the FOMC meeting. If Tesla broke 165 and continued to push up, it could have actually broken 170, but it actually failed to do so. And as that happened, Tesla got another rejection. Tesla came all the way back down to support around 160, and during the after hours, it's actually just at 160 right now. So the question is, what's likely going to happen going forward, especially because when you look at SPY, we had the structure right here where we got tighter and tighter and tighter in this wedge. And then what happened was we got this big rug pull at the end of the day when Powell was speaking, because he did not give the confirmation the markets were looking for. And this really brings in some big red flags about the markets, which I will talk about a little bit later. But I did predict that we would see a push up in the morning and we'd see the market actually respond positively to the Fed's most likely 25 basis point rate hike, and that's what happened in the morning. We got this nice push up. SPY almost got to about 414 in the morning. Then I told you we would react to what Powell says. If he helped the market pump, we could have kept going. If he said the word pause, we could have saw a nice rally, but there is no confirmation of that, and we got the rug pull instead. I did warn you about this as well, and that is what happened. But the real question is, what's happening tomorrow? What's happening going forward? I need to talk about that first before I break down the future. Now, for tomorrow, I just want to let you guys know that we have exports and imports data. We also have initial jobless claims data, which is super important for the Fed's policies. We want this to be around 245,000. We want more and more unemployment and more pain for the job sector. That's exactly what Jerome Powell said. On Friday, we also have the unemployment rate coming out and non-farm payrolls, so more unemployment data and used cars data. Next week, we have CPI coming out. Sorry. Next week, we have CPI. That is going to be very impactful for the markets. So make sure you guys are prepared for lots of volatility over the next couple of trading days. But the biggest thing coming out for this week, for the rest of the week, is going to be Apple's earnings. For tomorrow, there's not much coming out in the morning, but after the market closes, we have Apple, Shopify, Coinbase, Lyft, and etc. Lots and lots of big ones, especially Apple. The reaction to Apple's earnings is going to come on Friday. All right, so on Friday, if Apple absolutely kills it during earnings and Apple starts to rocket, we're going to see this basically have a ripple effect on the whole market, and then Tesla, many other stocks out there like SPY and etc. will start pumping too. But if Apple gets rug pulled and Apple misses on earnings or guidance is not great or something happens that causes a rug pull, expect the market to get rug pulled too on Friday. Let's get ready for this. Make sure you are prepared. It's going to be very huge. Now let's talk about the FOMC meeting very briefly. What happened during the meeting? Jerome Powell came up there and he came to the podium and ended up speaking about the Fed's future monetary policy. Using open market operations, the Fed was providing us some very important insights about the future. Unfortunately, you have to remember the stock market loves certainty. The market loves this, they love it, when we know what's going to happen in the future. The market loves that, and we did not get that this time. So because we're uncertain, that's why the market had a negative reaction, and also because of other things. Now, To start us off, Powell came up and he was talking about how the Fed is still going to remain very reactive to big data, and they don't truly know what they're going to do going forward just yet. They gave us a 25 basis point rate hike. The market initially, it pumped, it came down, then it pumped again. And we did get a pump like I predicted after that decision was made. And then Jerome Powell told us the Fed is not sure about what they're going to do afterwards. The Fed has not confirmed a pause for the next meeting. They also did not confirm anything. All Powell said is they're going to look at the data and react to it. Some people may speculate that the Fed may know something about the next like CPI report or something like that, and that's why they have not confirmed the pause. Maybe that's the case, maybe not. We'll see. Be very, very cautious, however. Jerome Powell was also asked about a recession, and Powell said that a mild recession is a possibility, but he believes that a soft landing is still technically possible. Not necessarily like a very soft landing like before, but a landing that's just not as hard as some people are expecting. That's what Powell is talking about. He's saying this because when you look at the unemployment sector, we are seeing some progress on inflation, his opinion, despite the fact that unemployment is still relatively low. That tells us that, contrary to popular belief, we may not get a massive spike in unemployment like the way some people are thinking, in Jerome Powell's opinion, and we could still see big improvements to inflation. Powell was also asked, what about 3% inflation? Could the market survive? Could the Fed survive with 3% inflation? Are you guys going to be okay with that? And Powell said no. Their goal is very stern. They're very, very strict, and they want 2%. Now, here's where the concerns are. If you look at the last couple of days, many banks saw lots of hardships like PacWest and Western Alliance, and now the FDIC is on the verge of acquiring these banks to resell them at discounts to other larger banks like JP Morgan. But the problem is the Fed is continuing to raise rates again. And this is going to lead to more hardships for the banks. We saw lots and lots of banks continuing to collapse, and we're likely going to see more on the verge of collapsing. Elon Musk said that more rate hikes will cause a severe recession. This is very important because the severe recession is the complete opposite of what Powell is saying. And I'm actually siding more with Elon Musk on this. I think there's a lot more pain than what is being said to us. The Fed have lost a lot of credibility in the lives of millions, but at the same time, I mean, it's very important to look at data and like what Powell was saying. So I'm still kind of mixed on that. Just so you guys know, CPI is coming out very soon. The Fed will make a big reaction to that. And until then, I mean, the Fed has not given us much more information about what they're going to be doing. All we know is they gave us 25 basis points and they're just going to react to the data. This could be very inefficient in a way too, because data tends to be very lacking and the Fed could be reacting to old stuff. Be very careful. Like I said before, just be very, very careful. So far, there is nothing very, very bullish about what Powell said. Nothing was confirmed for the bulls. So the odds are now more in favor of the bears for the time being, just temporarily. But once again, Apple earnings could change that. We'll see how that goes. We're expecting a pause for June according to the markets, and there's only a 13% chance of a 25 basis point rate hike, but this could change depending on CPI. For Tesla, there's been a lot of talk about a price war between Ford and Tesla. We are seeing more price cuts from both of them, at least in the past, we've been seeing them. Tesla did actually raise prices just a couple of days ago, but they were very, very small price raises by just a few $100s, which is very minuscule relative to the massive, massive price cuts we saw in the past. Now, with the dramatic cuts of the Model Y and the 3 for their EVs, the Ford CEO did mention that Ford could also participate in something like this, despite GM and like Volvo not doing the same thing. And he did mention that price cuts alone are not going to save Tesla. They're not everything that we need to know. And we should always be very, very careful when looking at it that way. I mean, I had a very different perspective on that. I still think Tesla has great models coming out, and I do believe they will prevail and become like some of the top hits from the EV sector, unlike what the Ford CEO said. But he did have some good points that, there are other things we have to look at too, such as how Tesla improves their products and etc. Now, another piece of news came out that Tesla building permits have revealed an unannounced lithium lab, once again helping Tesla to become a lot more dependent on lithium suppliers. They're actually working on becoming more independent in the process and opening their own lithium refinery in southern Texas. That's a very, very good piece of news, in my opinion. This will help Tesla take more control over the steps of mining them and continuing to grow and produce their batteries. But then again, we just need more data to confirm it. A bullish piece of news is looking at the US inventory levels. Whoops. Down here, we can see they're continuing to drop. They're now around very close to 100, if not lower. They used to be around 600. So as we're getting closer to the summer and a lot of students are graduating and demand is shifting closer to Memorial Day, car sales are going up, and we're seeing more and more people buying these Teslas like crazy. This is great news for Q2. This is part of why Tesla raised prices, and I consider this more good news. We might get a good report if this continues, but we'll see what happens during the rest of the summer. Tesla has a relatively flat price-price ratio, not really doing too much. Piper Sandler is bullish on Tesla. And finally, for Thursdays, Tesla tends to be green only 48% of the time. So it tends to be one of our worst days of the week. So be very careful when you look at that. And also, if you look at the short interest on Tesla, it's still not increasing too much. It's very flat, around the 18 million for now. Tesla also lacked some volume, I believe. The last time I looked at it, only 120 million. Not too bad, actually. It's kind of in the middle. And it's good that Tesla closed green, so it has some relative strength to it. But the real question is, how are we going to move going forward? Now, as I'm looking at this, SPY came down again. It's actually now, it just hit about 406. So it's starting to drop more. Once again, turning more bearish. What do I see on the charts? For SPY, just real quick, once again, we were getting very tight on this wedge. We got to break to the downside from there. If we broke below a major support around 408, the odds are favoring this gap fill down here to 405.5 and then a retest of 404. We also have a possible head and shoulders like formation that formed on SPY. Uh, it's really favoring the bears right now because the bulls did not get what they wanted. Powell did not give us the confirmation we needed. And he could be hinting that maybe some data is coming out that's not going to be too good. Who knows? But here's what I'm seeing for tomorrow. I mean, we dropped pretty hard and we are forming a bullish divergence. So I think we might get a small bounce in the morning. Maybe we like gap down and then try to bounce or something like that. Very small bounce, but I don't really see too much of it. We might just see a retest of like 409 or so and then just continue to sell off. Since 408 did not hold, the odds are now favoring us just continuing to drop to fill this gap and just continuing to come down. I just don't know the exact timing if we're going to come all the way down tomorrow or if it's going to take a couple of trading days. That could depend on Apple's earnings, but either way, I do see downside coming for SPY. The odds are now favoring that. For Tesla, it's currently at about 160 flat right now. It's been just going back and forth, just channeling for the time being, rejecting off 165 to 165.49. We also have the 1 hour 200 EMA as resistance. So far, Tesla has not been able to break it. Tesla's very important support's 160. We need to hold 160 nicely, not get a clean break below it. If we do, we're going to be seeing 158, then 156 potentially being tested, and the very important supports around 152. We have to hold that. If it fails to hold that, it's going to come down pretty hard. Now, you could argue there's a possible inverse head and shoulders forming on Tesla. That would be like the more bullish case. But the question is, what's going to cause Tesla to break out to the upside like that? Just think about it. I'm not really seeing a big catalyst right now unless we get like killer earnings. And I don't really see that playing out. I just want to account for this possibility that many people on Twitter are talking about. I don't see this playing out so far. It looks to me like the market is weakening, and we just need a little bit more confirmation, whether it's like CPI or Apple earnings, that could cause the market to get rug pulled. For Tesla, if you want to turn bullish, it needs to break 165.5, then it could hit 170, but I just think it's unlikely right now, seeing what Jerome Powell just said. For tomorrow, I think Tesla's going to try to bounce. It's going to try to bounce in the morning, just like how it has every morning, and try to retest 163. However, it's going to likely get rejected. And then if 160 fails us, because I am seeing some downwards pressure from SPY in the QQQ, if it causes enough downside pressure for Tesla and it fails to hold 160, it's going to come all the way down to 156 to 158. That zone down there. And in my opinion, what I think is it's very likely that's going to happen. It's going to bounce in the morning to just start downtrending just a bit, especially if we do see Apple come down too, and a lot of these consumer discretionaries. We might see Tesla get rug pulled, not a huge rug pull, but just sell off not too hard, but just a bit. It's about 158 by tomorrow. And then it might try to hold this level and then make a big reaction after Apple's earnings comes out. For Coinbase, we have earnings tomorrow. I mean, it's been beaten very hard. It's been downtrending for the last few days without much of a bounce. I'm not really seeing much of a divergence forming. There is a possible bullish divergence, but nonetheless, it's likely going to make an attempt to bounce in the morning. But if the market sells off, it's going to come down well below the 50 area. Once again, trading very flat, in my opinion, maybe closing somewhere in the red around 48 flat. The dollar, it's not breaking out like it usually does. If the dollar breaks out, that's going to become bearish. It's still pretty flat, so there is still some hope of the market bouncing a little bit before it does continue to come down. For Neo is trying to base and it's trying to bounce too. Neo might make an attempt to get up to about 7.19. I'm sorry, 7.8 to 7.9, and then it might reject from there and start downtrending. If that's the case, we could see some bearish momentum. Microsoft did exactly what I predicted. I told you guys watch 305. We came down to 304.4, almost exactly what I predicted. We're likely going to see this thing bounce and then end up rejecting and continue downtrend to 303, if not 300 flat. QQQ looks bearish to me. On the daily chart, it looks like this. It looks very distributive right now. It looks like it was quite overextended for quite a while, and the daily candle just looks bearish. It opened here, pushed up, came all the way down, and it just sold off to end the day. It's also down in the after hours. I'm anticipating it's going to try to bounce a little bit, retest the 200 EMA around 318, then just continue to sell off and fill the gap down to 313. That's what I'm seeing for the QQQ, a 313 gap fill over the next couple of trading days. We do have a possible head and shoulders that develop too. This is like the head, the left shoulder, right shoulder. Still looking bearish. The VIX had a bullish divergence that is starting to play out. It pushed up, it came down. It might just try to continue to push up in like a bull flag like pattern. Overall, it's gaining lots of strength. It's starting to uptrend. If it continues to uptrend, that could be bearish for the stock market. Very likely at this point. Amazon may push up, then come all the way down to 101 to 102. That's what I'm seeing for Amazon. It has some relative strength, but we have a bearish crossover on the PPO. I apologize if I'm talking kind of fast. I just want to get through these as fast as possible. NVIDIA is pushing up. It might push up a little bit to retest this 200 EMA. Then it's likely going to reject and continue to downtrend. If it breaks below the 200 EMA, it's likely going to come down all the way down to getting closer to 270 flat. If that fails, there's 266. I am seeing this thing potentially downtrending a bit. There's also a possible divergence forming. I'm not really seeing a very big divergence. There was one right here that formed this bullish move, but it failed. So it looks like it's just going to bounce a little bit, then just continue to downtrend. That's what I'm seeing for NVIDIA. Apple is quite overextended. It did sell off quite a bit during the after hours. It's actually selling off pretty hard. That is not a good sign for the markets. What I'm seeing for Apple is it hits support. It might try to bounce a little bit into open. And if Apple just fails, it could actually come down pretty hard. If it does come down hard after earnings, that's going to be a very bad sign for the markets. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I expect Apple to just trade kind of sideways, not really crash too hard, not really rally. If it does sell off approaching earnings, we have to be very careful. We'll see how earnings goes for them. I love to just be very patient. Google might pump a little bit to about this 200 EMA around 107 almost, and reject and make its way down to 104, if not 103. All right, and Meta finally did almost exactly what I predicted. I told you it would break below 240. That's what happened today. I think it might retest the 200 EMA around 238, then just trade sideways and has some strength to it. Then it might slowly downtrend just a little bit and close a little bit in the red around 235 to 230. And finally, for the 10-year Treasury yield, if this thing bounces, because it's trying to bounce off 33.67, if it bounces, it could fill the gap to 34.3. If it keeps going, then there's the gap to 37.5, and then a break above where our 200 EMA is around 35 flat. If it gets the bounce and pushes, that's going to become bearish for the stock market. But once again, I would just be patient with it. I'm not too sure how this is going to go, but like I said before, just be very patient. If it does get the bounce, if it starts pushing up, that can become very bearish. So be very careful. The odds are favoring the bears right now. Like I said before, SPY is selling off pretty hard. I'm going to be looking for a bounce tomorrow in the morning, followed by another sell-off. And Powell did not help the markets, so please remain calm, cool, and collected. As for Tesla, as I said before, it's going to bounce in the morning, probably try to get around 163 and then fail and just make its way down to 160. If that fails, watch 158 and 156. I think it's very likely it's going to test 158 at the very least, and then it might close somewhere in the red, just a little bit red tomorrow. But then for Friday, the downside is very likely, but it's not a guarantee. If Apple kills it during earnings, it could bounce and the market could do something unexpected, but we have another day until Friday, so I'm not too worried about Friday yet. Just remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll most definitely see you guys in the next one. I also have some merch for you guys if you're interested in buying anything like a to the moon sweater or a shirt or a tank top. It's really your choice. Look around the comment section if you're interested in buying something. It would help the channel. If not, it's completely fine with me. All right, thank you all so much for listening. Tesla to the moon because the long term is still very bright. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you and peace out.